Hegelian Dialectic. Hegel's dialectical method explains how philosophical ideas or understanding evolve through recognizing and resolving internal contradictions. It unfolds in three stages: thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. The thesis presents an initial idea. The antithesis opposes or contradicts that idea. For instance, if the thesis is everything is white, the antithesis might assert some things are not white. When the thesis and antithesis clash, it sparks tension, leading to a synthesis, a new idea that reconciles and goes beyond the limitations of both the original thesis and antithesis. For example, the synthesis could propose, most things are white, but exceptions exist. This dialectical process fosters continuous development and refinement of knowledge by acknowledging and resolving internal contradictions as they arise. Marxist Dialectic. Marx's dialectical method builds upon Hegel's, but applies it to the realms of economics and society. For Marx, dialectics operate in history through class struggle. In Marxism, the thesis would be a society divided into dominant and oppressed classes. The antithesis is the growing dissatisfaction and struggle of the oppressed class. This generates a contradiction between social, productive forces and capitalist relations of production. When a breaking point is reached, the synthesis occurs, a proletarian revolution that overturns capitalism and establishes a new classless society. However, new contradictions will inevitably arise within the new society, renewing the dialectical process. Unlike Hegel, Marx argues that dialectics are not abstract but develop materially throughout history as a result of economic conditions and the struggles between social classes with antagonistic interests within the prevailing mode of production. Socratic Method. Socrates' dialectical method involved engaging others in questioning and dialogue to explore their ideas or beliefs. Through conversation, Socrates aimed to uncover inconsistencies, contradictions, and flaws in the other person's thinking. The Socratic dialogue typically began with Socrates asking simple questions to encourage the other person to share their perspective on a topic. Then, through further inquiry, Socrates gently guided them until they recognized contradictions in their own reasoning. Confronted with their own lack of understanding, the other person was prompted to reevaluate their initial viewpoint. Socrates didn't seek to impose his own ideas, but rather fostered mutual exploration, allowing both parties to gradually deepen their understanding. This method facilitated a step-by-step approach to understanding a subject, reducing uncertainty and errors along the way. For Socrates, the only certainty was his own ignorance, driving him to investigate ideas through respectful conversation. Dialogical Method. The dialectical method underscores the value of conversation and mutual exchange to deepen our grasp of ideas, akin to the Socratic dialectical approach. Through respectful dialogue among two or more participants, the aim is to explore a topic from diverse angles. As individuals present their viewpoints, they lay out the foundation of their argument or thesis. Subsequently, through questions and responses, this thesis undergoes critical examination, potentially leading to the emergence of new perspectives or reinforcing the initial stance with stronger reasoning. By actively listening, participants may uncover areas of agreement or insights previously overlooked. The richness of the exchange hinges on the sincerity, openness, and willingness to consider alternative viewpoints among all parties involved. The objective isn't to persuade others, but rather to create a shared space where diverse perspectives can mutually inform and enhance understanding. Pragmatic Dialectics. The pragmatic dialectical method focuses in on practically resolving problems, operating under the belief that truth emerges from the real-world results of implementing ideas. It starts with an initial viewpoint or thesis on how to tackle a specific issue. Then, through experimentation and trying out different plausible solutions, an opposing viewpoint or antithesis is brought into the picture, challenging the original thesis. By comparing the outcomes of both approaches, the need for an inclusive synthesis becomes evident. This fresh perspective is cyclically put to the test, leading to the emergence of new, progressively refined theses, antitheses, and syntheses. Pragmatism isn't about seeking absolute truths, but rather about finding solutions that actually work in practice. The focus is less on theoretically proving an idea and more on verifying its effectiveness in addressing a specific problem. Critical dialectics. The critical dialectical method involves rigorously questioning and evaluating established assumptions, ideas, and beliefs. Initially, there's the prevailing viewpoint or status quo on a given topic, known as the thesis. This perspective undergoes thorough analysis to uncover its flaws, limitations, contradictions, and exclusions, forming the antithesis. By highlighting the shortcomings of the thesis, a tension emerges, prompting the need for improvement. This tension leads to the emergence of a new, more comprehensive perspective or synthesis that better reflects reality. However, this new perspective is also subject to close scrutiny to identify potential areas for enhancement. Thus, the critical dialectical process is ongoing and iterative. Fichtean Dialectics, Fichte's Dialectical Method, delves into the relationship between the subject and object of knowledge. According to Fichte, the initial standpoint is the consciousness of the self, representing the subjective certainty of one's own existence. However, as consciousness becomes self-aware, it realizes its inability to exist in isolation and necessitates an object. This realization leads to the antithesis, the requirement for the non-self, which constitutes the external world to the subject. Consequently, tension or contradiction arises between the self and the non-self, a dilemma that consciousness must resolve. The resolution of this conflict results in the synthesis. The self can only assert its existence by placing boundaries on the non-self. Thus, the subject and object mutually determine each other in a dynamic process. In essence, Fichte views dialectics as the internal movement of consciousness itself, shaping meaning about both the self and the world through the continuous interaction between the self and the non-self. Daoist Dialectics. Dialectical Taoism method is seen as the natural and harmonious interplay of yin and yang. Yin embodies darkness, moisture, and femininity, while yang represents light, dryness, and masculinity. Initially, yin and yang coexist in a balanced and flowing state, complementing each other. However, over time, one aspect may begin to overshadow the other, causing imbalance or antithesis. As one aspect reaches its peak, it naturally begins to decline, prompting the rise of the opposing principle. This gradual process restores equilibrium between yin and yang. Freud's Psychoanalytic Dialectic. Freud's Psychoanalytic Dialectic method explains that the human mind is in constant dialectical conflict between the forces of the ego, the id, and the superego. The id is where our unconscious desires and instincts, like sexual and aggressive impulses, reside. The superego, on the other hand, is shaped by society and holds our learned moral standards. The ego tries to balance these two, aiming to satisfy our desires in socially acceptable ways. This setup creates a tension between our inner desires and societal rules. The ego tries to manage this conflict using defense mechanisms like repression or rationalization. However, suppressed desires don't just disappear. They resurface in different forms, leading to an unstable mental state. Psychoanalysis helps bring these hidden desires to light, aiming to find a new balance between our conscious and unconscious minds. Yet this balance is temporary, as our desires and development keep evolving. In this way, the mind is always in a state of flux and conflict. Dialectical inquiry. The dialectical inquiry method is a process of asking and answering questions to explore a topic thoroughly. It starts with an initial question that raises an issue to discuss, like a thesis. Then, through questions and discussions, the original question is examined from different angles to find its complement, qualification, or contradiction, forming an antithesis. As different viewpoints are considered, tensions between them arise, prompting participants to rethink their positions and find a broader perspective, called a synthesis. This process continues with more questions and discussions, gradually deepening understanding. Educational dialectic. The educational dialectical method aims to boost students' critical and creative thinking by encouraging the clash of ideas. Here's how it works. The teacher presents a topic and asks students to share their different viewpoints, forming the initial opinions or thesis. Then, through questions and discussions, these views are challenged, creating opposing perspectives or antitheses. As students listen to each other, they start refining their original ideas and even come up with new ones that combine different viewpoints, forming a synthesis. The teacher keeps the critical thinking going by asking more questions, starting the process all over again. This way, students learn actively, developing skills like analysis, argumentation, and openness to different perspectives. That's it. Hit the subscription button to stay informed as we aim to easily explain everything for you.